Hello there, Grade 11. Welcome to Reading and Writing Skills Module 1. In this module, you will distinguish between and among techniques in selecting and organizing information. Let us begin with the module objectives. By the end of the module, you are expected to perform the following. First is to identify and illustrate the different types of graphic organizers and to make a cohesive presentation using different graphic organizers. Before we begin with our discussion, let's have a simple activity. Compare and contrast your life before and after, or in this case, during the imposition of the community quarantine due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sure there's a big difference from your activities then and now. Okay, let's go. Surely you are very much familiar with the Venn diagram, right? You have used it before in one of your activities last semester, and I'm sure you have used it a lot of times even before then, and you will use it many times more in the future. So let's go. Firstly, before the quarantine, our interactions were mostly face to face. In school, you get to see your classmates, your friends, and your teachers. But during the quarantine, our interactions became virtual. We mostly make use of social media platforms or apps to communicate with other people. We have also shifted to the flexible learning system. That is why our classes are now being conducted either online via Google Classroom or through distance learning, just like printed modular or digital. Next, before the quarantine, our trips to the malls, local stores, or department stores or grocery stores were frequent. But now, we have more online purchases than before. Thank you, of course, to Lazada, to Shopee, to Foodpanda, or even the local sellers that we see on social media selling their fruitcakes, their cupcakes, their pizzas, their empanadas, right? And then, before the quarantine, we might have a lot of itinerary. We can travel anywhere, anytime we wanted, as long as we have the money to spend. But during the quarantine, there have been travel restrictions, so we stay at home as much as possible to keep ourselves safe from the COVID-19 virus. Now, there are, of course, some things that remain the same before and during the community quarantine. One of those might be our hobbies. The only difference now is that we have more time to do them. Using a Venn diagram is one way to organize and select information. And in this topic, we will be looking into other ways that you can organize and select information depending on the information that you have. So let's go. The amount of data or information that we produce or use every day is phenomenal. According to Forbes, there are about 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created each day at our current pace. And over the last 2 years alone, 90% of the data in the world is generated. And still, according to Forbes, the colossal amounts of data that we create every single day comes from different sources. So, with this colossal amount of information that we get from a lot of sources, it is important that we know how to organize and select them in a way that is appropriate, cohesive, and systematic. Furthermore, as you continue to understand content and text in a deeper sense, you should know how to break down big ideas into smaller, simpler ones that really make sense. Brainstorming is one of the techniques that we use to select and organize information. We use it to generate ideas, as simple as that. This technique can be used two ways, whether in a group or individual setting. There are two tools that we use in brainstorming. The first one is the idea list. which includes listing down broad topics and then you narrow them into more specific topic or topics. The idea list also involves writing the main topic and then listing down related ideas. Next is the idea map. The idea map is a visual representation of ideas and their connections with one another. Its difference with the idea list is that it is more structured because it shows how one idea subordinates another idea. Outlining is considered as a blueprint or a roadmap when writing. This is because it provides a framework or a summary of the essential features of a text. An outline shows how the parts of a text are related to one another, or we call it as a logical order, or it also shows us the hierarchical relationships of parts of a text. There are two ways that you can write an outline. Could be alphanumeric or it could also be the decimal outline. One, we have the alphanumeric outline which uses both letters and numbers as labels, and the decimal outline makes use of only numbers as labels. There are also two kinds of outline according to structure. We have the topic outline, which is a systematic arrangement of ideas using broad topics in the form of words or simple phrases as headers, as you can see here from our example. We also have the sentence outline, which makes use of complete sentences for its entries. It is otherwise known as expanded outline because its appearance and contents are expanded. For these two outline structures, you start with the thesis statement. Next is the first level subdivision, which is the main topic or idea. Then, of course, your second level subdivision would be your supporting detail or details. And then you can format it either alphanumeric or numeric only. And then your third level subdivision would be other sub-details or subtopics. And each time you subdivide a point, a topic, or an idea, you make an indentation or you indent. Alright? The key point here is that you make a systematic arrangement of ideas. Good thing when we use Microsoft Office, there are already multi-level lists and numberings that you can use to make an outline. But when you have to do it on your own, without the use of a computer, it may pose a challenge. Now, in making outlines, there are principles that you need to keep in mind. You need to make sure that your outlining is properly coordinated, subordinated, divided, and parallelly constructed. First is coordination. In outlining, coordination is a principle that enables you to maintain a coherent and consistent document. Coordination means equal significance, have comparable numeral or letter designations, just like what we have here. The first level subdivision, Roman numeral I, labeled positive effects of uniform policy, is equal to the first level subdivision, Roman numeral 2, negative effects of uniform policy. The same thing goes for the second level subdivisions, A is equal to B, and if you're going to add another subdivisions, then they should be equal as well. In other words, coordination should be seen as having the same importance. The principle of subordination shows that minor details have to be placed under their respective major details. This means that in organizing information, you should do so from general to specific. So let's take a look at our example here. The more specific information is placed under the major topic. The more general the concept, the higher the level or the rank in the outline. The next principle is the principle of division. This principle requires that no cluster should contain only one item. In an outline, every level needs at least two parts. This means that there can never be an A without a B, a 1 without a 2. As you can see here from our example, each level has two parts. The last principle is the principle of parallelism, or we also call it as parallel construction. It requires all entries in each cluster to use the same structure and format. In this example, the first subdivisions are parallel. Positive effects and negative effects are both in their plural forms. The second subdivisions are also parallel, in which each subtopic makes use of verb phrases in the present tense. This means to say that if you constructed the subtopics in the present tense, you also need to make sure that all the other subtopics are constructed in the same way. Another good way to select and organize information is the use of graphic organizers. Graphic organizers are visual or graphic representations of concepts or ideas that help us to structure information into organizational patterns. They present essential information and connect them into a coherent framework. And there are many different kinds of graphic organizers that you can use depending on the type of information that you need to organize. Which brings us to the kinds of graphic organizers. The first one is the Venn diagram. This one is familiar to all of us. As a matter of fact, you used it earlier when you compared and contrasted your life before and during the quarantine period. The mechanism of the Venn diagram is very simple. You use it to compare and contrast ideas, concepts, or events. Where the circles meet would be the similarities between or among ideas or concepts, and where they do not meet would be the features that are distinct from the others being compared to. One more thing, you may use two or more overlapping circles to show similarities and differences among the ideas or events that you want to compare and contrast. Another kind of graphic organizer is a network tree. A network tree is a graphic organizer that shows connections. It has many branches to show how facts and information are related to a main topic or idea. It is particularly helpful when you need to organize information according to hierarchy, classification, or branching, just like when you want to show your family tree or when you want to show the hierarchy in a company, just like what we have here in these examples. Next is the spider map. The spider map resembles that of a spider's web, hence its name. You use this graphic organizer when you want to investigate and enumerate various aspects of a central idea, which could be a concept, a topic, or a theme. What you do is you lay out a main idea on a page and you use lines to link ideas. As more ideas branch out, you're left with a graphical representation of something that may otherwise be difficult to understand. This is particularly useful for any kinds of activity that involves planning or brainstorming. So, whether you're revising for an exam, or planning for a new process, or just taking notes during an online class, a spider map can help you organize information. Another graphic organizer is the problem solution map. You use a problem solution map when you want to show the graphic presentation of a problem and how it can be solved. We all know that problem solving is one of the most complex of intellectual functions. A spider map usually contains the problem's description, its causes and effects, and logical solutions. These two here are examples of problem solution maps that you can use. So, using a problem solution map allows you to visualize your problem clearly. In other words, you find and represent the root cause or causes of your problem graphically. In the end, you come up with a list of prioritized actions that you need to do which you think will fix your problem. Next, we have the timeline. You use a timeline when you want to show how specific events occur in a sequence. This graphic organizer is particularly useful when you are studying or reviewing history because a timeline provides a visual display of major events over a period of time. A timeline can either be linear or comparative. A linear timeline shows how events happen chronologically in a straight line, whether that be horizontal or vertical. A comparative timeline, on the other hand, shows and compares two or more sets of subjects or events that occurred within the same period, as you can see here from this example. So the next time you catalog historical events or highlight your own milestones, make use of a timeline. That will be really helpful for you. Another graphic organizer is a plot diagram. You usually use a plot diagram in your English classes in which you need to map out events in a story and to analyze major parts of a plot. But since in this subject, our focus is on organizing information in the disciplines and in the professional setting, you don't have to worry about filling out plot diagrams. Next is the series of events chain. A series of events chain organizer is similar to a timeline in which it displays a graphic presentation of sequence of events. In the timeline though, events are in chronological sequence, complete with dates. A series of events chain, on the other hand, shows logical sequence of events, like how one particular event leads to another. Then we have the fishbone map. The fishbone map is called by that name due to its resemblance, of course, to the skeleton of a fish. The fishbone map is another visual way for you to show cause and effect. It is a more structured approach, though, because the use of this graphic organizer allows you to truly diagnose the problem because it displays all of the contributing root causes of a certain problem. You use the fishbone map when you want to analyze a problem statement or if you would like to conduct a quality or a process improvement. Next, we have the cycle diagrams. These are the kind of graphic organizers that show how items are related to one another in a repeating cycle. You use a cycle diagram to organize a repeating series of events or actions. A cycle diagram is a loop. It just never ends. Some events that require the use of this diagram are the water cycle, metamorphosis, and the poverty cycle. What about you? Can you think of a process or event that requires a cycle diagram? And lastly, we have the persuasion map. A persuasion map is an interactive graphic organizer that allows you to map out your own arguments to prove a viewpoint. This graphic organizer is particularly helpful in preparing your arguments for persuasive essays and debates. The end result is a systematic visual of how you can effectively present your arguments in order for you to achieve your purpose, which is, of course, to convince others that your arguments are valid and credible. These are the books I used as a reference for this module. I would suggest that you check them out for further readings.